Okay. Well, hi, good afternoon. 안녕하세요. So I'm going to speak today about the art of creative confidence and innovation. And I've been working on this idea of creative confidence for almost a decade. There's a book in Korean on this subject now. And what I notice is when I talk to people about creative confidence, say when I'm flying across the Pacific and somebody says, "What do you do?" And I say, "Well, I'm really interested in creative confidence." Instantly, they pick up on the idea and they'll say, "Oh, creative confidence." And then they start to tell me their story about creative confidence. But then, quite frequently, they'll pause, they'll stop and say, "Hey, what do you mean exactly creative confidence?" And so I've learned from experience, very good to start with a definition of terms. And so by creative confidence, I mean two things in almost equal parts. Thing number one is a natural human ability to come up with a fresh idea. And everybody has this. I mean, everybody. Now, I admit, it is buried a little deeper in some people than others. And some of you are thinking of your boss right now. But it's there, it is there, and we can bring it out. But this is not enough. It's not enough to have that creativity inside of you. You also have to have the other part of creative confidence, which is the courage to act, the courage to leap. And sometimes, especially for young people, especially for people in the lowest level of the company, that courage is simply the courage to raise your hand. The courage to express your idea, even if you know it might be a little different than other people's in the room. But as a leader, I know we need that person's idea. Of course, we don't know yet. Is it even a good idea until we get it out on the table and people with more experience or people with more knowledge of the industry or their field have a chance to evaluate it, to build on it. But we still need their ideas. Right? We find ourselves in a world with fresh new challenges never seen on Earth before, and if we've got new challenges, we need new ideas. We need people with creative confidence, not just the raw creative ability, but also the courage to act. And so, if you think about nurturing your own creative confidence, and you think about nurturing the creative confidence of those people who live and work around you, there are two ideas I'd like to leave you with today, two thoughts about how to nurture that creative confidence. And this is the first one. It's really about empathy. It's really thinking about humans, but for lots of people, especially in their working lives, it's not pure empathy. It's really blending your art, blending your technology with humanity. Right? And always thinking about the human element, not starting from your techniques or your technology, but starting with humans and say, what do humans need? What do humans like? How can I make someone's day? How can I make someone a hero? How can I make them feel happier or more comfortable? And if you start from that, as you apply your art, as you apply your technology, you're much more likely that people will embrace your ideas and the work that you do. So in the art world, or no, in the balance of the elements you have to think about when you're bringing something new into the world, at IDEO for the last 30 years, we've been focusing on these three different circles of finding that what we call sweet spot, that yellow asterisk at the center of three different elements. there's the technical factors. You know, I live and work in the Silicon Valley, and we love technology there, as I know that you do at many companies in Seoul. But technical factors, we call that feasibility, right? And that's important, it's just not enough. Of course, in all enterprises, including the nonprofits where IDEO spends a lot of our time, there's always the business factors, which is, can you sustain this idea? Can you keep it alive long enough to accomplish what it is that you want to accomplish? And that's kind of the viability of an idea. But the third circle, where people tend not to spend as much attention and their time as probably they should, or is where they have opportunities to do so, is people, it's humanity, it's desirability. And so that's why we found if you start from there, and the design thinking approach that my firm IDEO uses to all of our projects, we always start with empathy. We always start with the human factors, with desirability. And in the art world, a place that I've noticed that, just walking distance from my house in the Silicon Valley, I live in Menlo Park, California, a place most of you will know as the home of Facebook. Right? Facebook, almost walking distance from my house. And also walking distance is a place called the Pace Gallery, where they currently have an exhibit from an Asian art group you may have heard of. It's a Japan-based group called Team Lab. It is 400 artists working in a very collaborative way. They have this very successful collective, and their founder, Mr. Inoko, says that what they're doing is exploring new relationships between people and art through a digital language. And if I highlight some of the words there, what you notice, it's successful, it's about people and art, it's a digital language. That's the three circles, right? That's the technical factors, that's the business factors, that's the human factors coming together. And so the essence of their success in the art world is finding the overlap of all three, finding what they call the so-called sweet spot at the intersection to those three. And that's in the art world. If you look in the world of commerce, there's an example. For those of you not familiar with the Team Lab's work, you know, in all art, in all great art, you know, you get a chance to get inspired by the art that you see, right? But in Team Lab, because they start with humans, in Team Lab's work, not only do you get to react to the art actually reacts to you. And so one of the exhibits in this gallery near my house is called Crystal Universe. And in Crystal Universe, you download an app for your smartphone, and you control the entire exhibit. You're in a room surrounded by crystals, and you get to decide what the crystals do. Right? And if you're in the room with many people are competing to control what the crystals do, and it gets to be really fun. And so it is art reacting to you as you react to the art. And so that's in the artistic world. In the commercial world, an example of this starting with humanity is that one of our clients, it's a startup called Julep, headed by this founder, very charismatic Korean-American woman named Jane Park. And Jane doesn't use much traditional marketing, and so she wants a lot of innovations, and she wants innovations with stories attached, because the way she does her marketing is through the lead users that she calls mavens. So she tells a story to them, and they tell a story to the world. Right? And so we were working with her, and she said, we want to have innovation in nail polish. Right? That's one of their core offerings of this beauty brand. And innovations in nail polish, that might seem hard to do. Of course, you can make a new color, you can make a new formula, but we were looking for something bigger than that. And so we went out and we observed. We always start with empathy. We always start with humans. We're trying to blend technology with humanity. And so we go out in the world and we discover something about polishing your own nails. Now, it's embarrassing for other nail polish companies because women have been polishing their nails all the way back to Cleopatra. And yet, no one had noticed this thing that every woman in the room who does her own nails already knows, which is when you're using your good hand. For 90% of you, that's your right hand. When you're using your good hand, this is really easy. And then as soon as you switch, it gets really hard with the other hand, what they call the non-dominant hand. It's like, really? Guys? You didn't notice that before? You know, all of you guys running nail polish companies, all the cosmetic companies in the world seemed not to notice this thing because they started with their technology, because they started with their product. They didn't start with the women who use it. And so we notice this thing, and so we know how to solve this problem. But we also need a story, right? You got to have a story to tell the mavens, the lead users. And so with our insight, we combine it with a story, and here's the story. Every tool in the history of the human race, every tool that required dexterity has length, right? Like a pencil, like a scalpel, like a paintbrush. In fact, think about pencils. When a pencil gets short, too short to lean on the web of your hand, there is still lead in that pencil, and you throw it away. Why do you throw away that little pencil? Because it's too hard to use when it gets short. And think about the average cap on the average nail polish canister in the world. It's this little tiny thing that you held between your two fingers. All tools that require dexterity have length. So this is not so hard. Let's make it long. In fact, let's make it a detachable long handle that using magnetic connection can clip from bottle to bottle to bottle. Right? And we discovered through trial and error, through experimentation, which is what I'm going to talk about next, we discovered through experimentation that some women actually like it to articulate like this so that you can use a kind of a rolling motion instead of brushing it like a paintbrush. Right? We didn't start with the technology. We started with humans. What do humans need? Just like that example, in your life, if you look, you will find these ideas hidden in plain sight. This idea hidden in plain sight for 1,000 years, right? There are examples in your world the same. There are things that are right there in front of you and the chance to innovate by starting with humans. So that's the first of the two ideas. The second one is about treating life as an experiment, and experimentation sounds like fun. The part that is scary about experimentation is failure, right? Experiments sometimes fail, right? And so what we have to do in our lives is we have to learn to associate with experimentation, not with failure, not with permanent failure, but with learning. Because through experiments, you learn, right? And in the history of experimenters, I think someone who belongs in the experimenting Hall of Fame is the guy James Dyson, who founded this company that makes vacuum cleaners, among other products, the Dyson Corporation. And think about experiments. I spend a lot of time in my firm IDEO's Tokyo office. And just down the street from our Tokyo office is this experiment. It's a retail experiment on a very expensive corner in the Shibuya district of Tokyo. And it's the first of its type. It's called the Dyson Experience Store, right? And is this retail experiment going to succeed? I have no idea. I'm not sure that it will. When you go inside, it looks more like a museum than a retail store. Each individual product is on a pedestal, like in a museum. There doesn't appear to be any inventory at all. They're hoping that you will fall in love with their brand when you enter the store, right? Totally an experiment. Don't know if it will succeed, but I do know one thing for sure. I know James Dyson, the founder of this company, is not afraid of experiments. If you've seen him speak, or if you've read his book, you may know that his cyclonic vacuum cleaner, his very first product, started with 5,128 prototypes. Think about what that means. That's a lot of prototypes. Those of you who work in a business context, imagine going to your boss and saying you did 5,000 tries, but you want to keep going for a little while longer. Those of you who are artists, think about when might you be tempted to give up after 5,000 tries? The thing about James Dyson is he knew he was learning with each attempt, right? And if I ever meet Jim Dyson, I hope to meet him this year, actually, or this coming year, I got two questions for the guy. The first question is, Jim, why'd you keep track? Right? Because, wow, once you got to even 1,000 failures, because these aren't really successes yet, 1,000 prototypes in, I would be very tempted to stop counting completely. Right? Second question, much more important question for Jim Dyson when I meet him is, hey, Jim, were you married at the time? Because, wow, that is a one patient spouse who will let you play around in the garage through 5,128 prototypes, right? She'd be very tempted to say, Jim, get a job. Stop playing with vacuum cleaners, right? But, as you may know, James Dyson, now Sir James Dyson, knighted by the Queen of England, one of the richest men in the UK. Because he had the heart of an experimenter, because he was willing to keep at it, because he was learning with each experiment along the way. Right? And this is the essence of experimentation. Say, for example, just imagine that you wanted to be an Olympic skier, or let me bring it closer to home, Olympic skater. You decide early in your childhood you want to be an Olympic figure skater. You want to be the next Kim Yu-na, right? And you say to your mom, Mom, guess what? I'm going to be an Olympic gold medalist in figure skating. And she's so happy. And then you tell her the next thing, which is, and I never want to fall down. What did you just say to her, right? I never want to fail. If you want to be an Olympic figure skater and you decide in advance you're never going to fall down, you are also never going to be an Olympic figure skater, right? You're not going to win within the national competitions, right? Because in skating, in skiing, in life, falling down is a part of the process of success. We got to stop thinking of a failed experiment as a failure. We got to stop associating failure with permanence. Failure is how you learn. Failure is your chance to begin again, right? And so we have to kind of break with that tremendous fear of failure that some of us have if we want to progress, if we want to nurture our creative confidence. On this subject of failure in my research for the Creative Confidence book, I stumbled across a professor named Dean Keith Simonton, and he has spent his entire career studying genius and creativity. Right? He's written so many books I couldn't fit them all on the slide. But you can see from the four shown here, this is the topic he has dedicated his life to. And summing up all of that research, he says, you know what? He says, these so-called geniuses, he says, they don't necessarily have a higher success rate than the rest of us. They just try more stuff, right? And so all of the research that I've done, all of the people I've talked about as they move towards creative confidence, we call it flipping. When you go from the state of, no, I'm not creative, to, yes, I can do that. I do have this creative ability. We call that process flipping. All in the transition, in this personal transformation that goes from I'm not creative to, yeah, I do have creativity. In the midst of that transformation, one of the things that almost everyone learned was their desire, their ability to try more stuff. They continuously do experiments, and so I personally am at all moments in my life doing many experiments, knowing that some of them will not succeed. Right? But if you want to be an innovator, if you want to exercise your creativity, if you want to gain this creative confidence, you have to commit to being willing to try more experiments. Right? And so, as I said, it's really just two things that are simple to understand but require little practice. The first one is, regardless of what field you are in, whether it's art or technology or other fields, trying to find a way to blend the thing that you know best with more humanity, to start more with empathy. And second, to treat life as an experiment, to be that James Dyson, to be the Kim Yuna, to be the person that knows that there is some falling down, there is some small, at least behind-the-scenes failure on that path to great success. If you can do those two things well, if you can take those two ideas to heart, it will go a long way towards helping you personally and your team master the art of creative confidence and innovation. Thank you very much. Thank you. Should we get this? Okay. Nami, how are you? We shake hands.
So, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Nami Chung from the Asan Nanan Foundation, which supports next-generation entrepreneurs in Korea. So thank you all for joining the session with Tom Kelley. Tom, thank you for the wonderful presentation about the creative confidence.
Tom Manuel.
So without further ado, I'll just go straight to the question.
Sure.
So, Tom, could you please tell us about your own personal journey in obtaining your own creative confidence?
Sure.
Could you storytell about it?
Yeah, people are still clinging to this idea that you're born creative. And some people do. It seems to come easier for them. Of course, we're all born creative. In kindergarten, everybody's creative. But then sometimes around the 4th grade, it starts to drop off in people. But I work with my brother David, who was one of those people who was creative all the way through. His favorite class in high school was art. He was always making things. And if you just knew David, you'd say, yeah, see, that's proof. People are born creative. But if you look at my story, it kind of proves the opposite. Because, I had a very linear career. I got an MBA in a very kind of quantitative program. I was a management consultant. I did spreadsheets every day. In the old days, we had to do the spreadsheets without the use of a computer, if you can imagine that, for at least part of my consulting career. I worked for an accounting firm for a while. I had this very analytical background. And then I joined IDEO a very, very long time ago now. And what happened was I just immersed myself in an environment that was very supportive of creativity. And I think anybody in that environment could be kind of dipped into it and have their creativity increase. And so I experienced it in many different ways. A tell when I interview people and they say, no, I'm not creative, well, one of the things they quickly mention is, oh, yeah, I can't draw. And it's like, well, of course you can't draw. You can't play the piano either. If you want to draw, you have to practice drawing a little bit, right? And so this was me at the beginning of my IDEO career where I wouldn't go to the board and sketch something. And people said, look, just, pick up the marker. And that's actually the hardest part. Once you have the marker in your hand, then you kind of have to draw something, right? And once I drew my ugly little drawing that looked just about like my drawing looked in kindergarten, and people did not laugh, then I realized, wait, this is not about some kind of drawing competition. This is about taking my ideas that's sometimes hard to express in words and doing a sketch to try to show what I mean and having them accept it. And then they started teaching me little things about, how to draw a stick figure in a different way and things like that. And it was very, very simple things. And then I got my confidence. And so we got to the point where I felt very comfortable in a brainstorming session. I felt very comfortable, with my ugly drawing on the board. And so it's partly just about acceptance. And so this continued up through my writing career and my speaking career, where I just had this support that said, it's okay. We expect you to fail a little bit. It's okay. Let's do it again.
So that's how you gain your own creative confidence. But still, I think it would be challenging to remain creative. So because we have a nature to saddle. So I was just curious about your daily life. Do you have any secret recipe that you remain to be creative?
Yes. So daily life. So here's the thing. I don't know you individually in the audience, but I've spent enough time in Asia and enough time in Seoul to know, wow, you have busy lives. And so if you want to turn up your creative yield, right? If you want to capture more creative thoughts, if you want to have more useful creative thoughts in the day, you got to find some time in your life. And so this is something that I do very systematically. So step number one is figure out for you what's your best time, right? I've asked like 500 people this question. Well, is there a time in the day in which you come up with creative ideas where just random, interesting thoughts come to you? And they'll say, why, yes, there is, right? Well, oh, what is that time? And different people have different answers, and your answer may be unique, but a very common one is, oh, I frequently have creative ideas in the shower. And it's like, oh, really? I know why that is. Because in the shower, there's no email. There's no texting. There's no video games. In the shower, think about your daily life. The shower is one of the few times in the day in which your brain isn't focused on something. And your brain wants to be unfocused once in a while. They sometimes call it daydreaming, but daydreaming sounds negative. We call it relaxed attention, right? This sense that my brain needs a creative moment. So yours may not be the shower, right? Yours may be, your morning commute. If you have a kind of a boring train commute, that might be a perfect opportunity. It is for some people, right? Some people say they go for a walk in the afternoon. Some people say, oh, it can't be an urban walk. It has to be a walk in nature, right? None of those are mine. Mine is the first 5 minutes in the morning. You know, there's a part of your brain, it's right here, it's called the prefrontal cortex, and that's the executive center of your brain. That focuses you, right? But for creative thought, you don't always want focus. And you know how at nighttime, your brain is just like crazy? You know, you have these weird dreams where you're flying around the neighborhood. That's the creative part of your brain. And right after I wake up, I swear, the executive center is still sleeping, you know, like a teenager, you know, little trouble waking up, and the creative part is still going, and that's my time, right? So, step number one, find your time. Step number two, now protect it. If your best, most creative time of the day is taking a walk in the afternoon, do not miss that walk. If it's in the commute, don't check your email on the way into work. Use that time. So find your time, protect your time, and third is capture those ideas, right? So some of you are thinking, yeah, but I'm in the shower. Well, my brother, who I work with, his best time is in the shower. He keeps a whiteboard marker in the shower. He's got a glass wall on the shower. He writes his ideas on the glass wall. It's erasable, right? Right? For me, it's that first time of the day. I have 2 pads of paper beside my bed. One that's lit, so that when I have the idea in the middle of the night, I don't have to wake up my wife. And one that is not lit, which is easier to write on, right? And so in those 5 minutes of the day, I write down the ideas that occur to me. And in fact, I write down the ideas that occur to me every moment that they come. And so I'm a digital immigrant. You're mostly digital natives. So I still like paper, right? And so I pretty much always have a pen with me, and pretty much always have something in my back pocket I can capture that idea on. And so if you do that, if you find your unique time, if you protect that time, if you capture the ideas of time, I can pretty much guarantee you will turn up your creative yield. And not all of these ideas are useful to you right away, but you capture day after day, and then you've got your own book of ideas, and you go back and look at them. It's like, ooh, there's an idea I can use today. And so I do a lot of things. I have some personal experiments, but that's one of the things that I do every day.
Great, great. So at your presentation, you talk about the experiment. But to experiment, we need to feel safe to fail.
Yes.
But I don't know if you have heard about Koreans' tendency for the high achievements. So I was just curious, do you have any advice for Koreans to make a culture that is friendly to failure?
Yes. Yes, I mean, more than anything, it is this thing I already mentioned, which is reassociating failure. And we mean, by the way, a certain kind of failure. At IDEO, we have this thing we call a noble failure, which is a failure in which you You tried honestly and diligently. You didn't ignore people's advice. You didn't. You weren't sloppy in your implementation. You tried in a way that could have really succeeded and just didn't quite work this time around. And when you reach those, it's really important as bosses. It's really important as parents. It's really important as peers, as friends to the creative people around us, to react in the right way, to take today's failure in the context of this is what we need to do, right? This is how we're going to succeed in the future. Imagine if James Dyson, if he was married, right, having his wife, after the 5th time say, look, James, you're just a failure. You're just worthless. You're just tinkering in the garage. Would he have kept going? I'm guessing not. I'm guessing he wouldn't be the richest man in the UK today. I'm guessing he wouldn't have been knighted by the Queen, right? And so that's it. I mean, look around. These people who failed 1,000,000 times are now great successes. We got to look at that and not be so stuck on, well, I didn't succeed today. Ask Kim Yuna how many times she fell down before she got to her first Olympic event. Is it 1,000? I'm pretty sure it's more like 10,000. It might be 100,000. Does anybody think that was wrong? Right? Does anybody think that each of those failures was permanent? No. And yet, in our own lives, we feel like we're marked by failure, right? And we judge people around us by failure. We gotta find a way to shift that if we're going to live up to the creative potential of ourselves, of our teams, really of our nations.
Thank you for the wonderful advice. So I was just curious, what was the most creative challenge that you ever faced? So could you tell us about the most challenging project that you've done for your client?
Yeah, so if you come in right at the end of a movie, it seems kind of obvious, that what the outcome was going to be. But if you join in the middle or at the beginning, it's like, where is this going to go, right? And so I am really proud of a lot of the work that IDEO has done, but when I spend time with the project team at the beginning, or I hear about a challenge at the beginning, it's like, how is this going to work, right? Especially when you're doing something for the first time. And so we did this project recently that scared the heck out of me. We have this very charismatic, very visionary client in the country of Peru, and his name is Carlos Rodriguez Pastor, and CRP, some people call him. And Carlos invited us to redesign a school system for a nation, right? And we care a lot about education. We have a group called Design for Learning, but school system for a nation, that sounds really hard. And we don't have that much money. We have to, this has to be low cost for the emerging middle class. And there's not a great tradition of great education in the country. And wow, I'm thinking, are we gonna have a terrible experience in this? And in fact, we just started at the beginning. We started with design thinking. We observed students. We talked to parents. We talked to teachers. So we started with empathy, and we found a way to design the physical schools, the curriculum, and even the business model. The schools, you can look it up, it's called Innova Schools. And our Peruvian kids are doing incredibly well. We now have thousands of students in our schools, and they've got the test scores to support their success, but they've also got a culture, that they're deeply interested in learning, and their parents are excited, and the teachers are happy to be working there. And this, at the beginning of the project, this seemed like bordering somewhere near impossible to me. And so because it seemed so impossible at the beginning, it's so much more rewarding at the end. And this school has been on the cover of magazines talking about global world changers because of the success. But wow, that seemed hard at the beginning of that project.
Since we are running out of time, I just want to give you a last question.
Sure.
So you are an ambassador of creative confidence.
Yes.
So what will happen if all the people around the world gain their own creative confidence, what will happen next?
Sure. So this is this amazing possibility because, for that book on creative confidence, I interviewed 100 people. And it was so much fun to be around these people. One of the women in the book named Jill, I found about her from her mother. And her mother said, Tom, have you met my daughter Jill? Jill is glowing, right? What people found when they go through this flipping process from I'm not creative to, yeah, I can do this, is, wow, they are enjoying work, they're having more impact at work, they're just having more fun, right, along the way. And when you have these people with creative confidence on your team, it's so great because they're willing to take on that tough challenge because, hey, I'm creative, bring it on. I don't see the solution yet, but I bet I can come up with something. So they're willing to take on a bigger risk, a bigger challenge at the front end. They have more stamina, in the middle, right? Because a tough project can go on for a long time. They have more resilience when there's a setback. And so my wish for all of you is you have a chance to have this creative confidence in yourself and to encourage creative confidence with people around you because yes, you have more impact on the world. Yes, you get more done. But yes, you also can have a lot more fun in the process. And it turns out that if you're having fun in your life's work, in your vocation or in your avocation, you will be better at it. You will get more done. You will have greater accomplishments and rewards in your life. As James Dyson did, as Kim Yu-na did, as these 100 people who I interviewed for the book have done, that would be a very great world to live in, or a great company to live in, or a great community to live in, one in which everyone has this kind of creative confidence.
Great. Thank you, Tom, for joining the session.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Should we go?